Hi, I'm Tony, and this is Vadim, and we're going to show you an end-to-end demo of building a local agent and taking it from a prototype to a deployed cloud app.
And we'll be publishing all of our code open source, and we can't wait to see what you will build with it. This demo is for people with custom agents who want to deploy them to the cloud and then share them. We'll start with the agents running locally, and then we'll move them to Runloop, and finally deploy to a full site where anybody can use them.
The fastest way to get started building an agent is by forking an existing agent harness. We're going to be using LangChain's Deep Agents. I have the Deep Agents repo open. What it is a harness with tools for memory, thinking, planning, and more. You can see that I forked this into my own repo and made a few edits. I made an edit directly within the CLI to the agent prompt. Here, I've added an instruction to make my agent a little bit more nautical themed. Then, for my use case, I added two more tools. Both of these tools are meant to suggest upgrades for dependencies. This one's for Python, this one's for TypeScript. These are some of the quick edits that I made to my local agent, but you could imagine doing a lot more tools, skills, and other extensions to customize your agent and make it suit your use case. I'm now going to show you my agent running locally using DeepAgents CLI functionality. I'm going to run with UV to start the agent. I'm going to ask the agent to look at its own repository and recommend upgrades. The other way that you can interact with DeepAgents is via the LangGraph Server. I'm going to show that running now in a separate local repo. You can see I have to start a new instance of my terminal to do this because all my agents are single-threaded. As a part of this dev server, we can connect to agentchat.vercel.app outside of Langsmith's Studio functionality. This is LangChain's own open source project, which is a native chat UI for connecting to the dev server. You can see, however, that this is two different ways of testing and viewing all of the tool calls for my local agent. We can see that we have a few different responses. I'm going to get the Python agent to complete its run while we look at the TypeScript recommendation. Our pirate agent has scanned the repository and done a quick summary. We notice some outdated dependencies, some high-risk upgrades, and then a recommended plan, which is great. I could even ask this agent to execute these commands if I want to. On the other side, we can take a look at the Python recommendation for itself. We have a few APIs that are outdated and then some key infra libraries that we can update. This is a great example of my agent doing the work that I expected to do with these new tools.
So after we get an agent working locally, this is usually where the hard part starts and problems come in. First and foremost, how do we share this? Well, developers can fork repos and run things locally, but as agents get better, we want to share with as wide of an audience as possible. And that's where Runloop comes in.
The core of the Runloop platform is the Devbox. Everything is structured in one way or another to support Devboxes. You can start a Devbox pretty quickly from the UI, but we also have an API as well as ways to launch Devboxes with more parameters. Some ways to interact with running Devboxes include opening a CLI directly into them or even taking a snapshot. This saves the disk state and allows interaction and forking later on. Another way to interact with Devboxes is to build blueprints. These are pre-built versions of Devboxes, kind of like templates. You can use a mix of snapshots and blueprints to make sure that you launch Devboxes with the correct environments and the correct dependencies you require. We also have access to an object and secret store for when your agent might need keys or data and extra dependencies. You can manage and add them to Devboxes in a centralized way. One final thing to highlight is our Agents Lab. Agents are stored on your account ready to be added to a Devbox or another primitive. There are three different ways to define an agent. A Git agent, which is a reference to a Git repo and a specific branch. An NPM agent, which is for users using a pre-existing package, or for example, Claude Code or Gemini CLI. Finally, an object agent, where you give us an archive or a single executable that holds your agent on it. You're able to configure setup commands for all these agents and can easily add these agents onto a box via a mount. The Runloop primitives of Devboxes, snapshots, and agents make it easy to bring your agent to the cloud. We're going to head back to the agent repository now and see which tools we have to make it easy to run agents on Runloop.
We'll show you the actions that allow you to upload an agent, and then we're going to show you how to deploy this agent.
Runloop has a GitHub action called deploy agent. This is similar to that modal you just saw, where you can pick a different type of agent and add it to the Runloop platform. I've gone ahead and defined it for my Deep Agents fork. I'm going to run it in front of you to show you what it looks like. You can see that this action is very light because it's only adding a reference to the agent itself. When we put the agent on the box, that's when we actually install dependencies. You can see now that the action has finished and we can take a look at the outputs. Within the outputs, you have a few steps, including a URL that can open directly to the agent in Runloop. Taking a look at the agent dashboard, you can see that we have a new agent created. Given this agent, I'm now able to create a new Devbox with the agent on it. Starting my agent, I need to add a few things, which include my secrets, as well as a code mount. This is going to be the repository that the agent actually works in. I'm going to add the request library and then launch my Devbox. So we see that the Devbox is being initialized, and we can take a look at its status on the Devbox page. In the future, we can use a snapshot or blueprint with the agent on it, or use a different type of agent to speed up the startup time. Now that this Devbox is started, I'm going to snapshot my Devbox for another step down the line. I'm able to use the CLI tool that I showed previously to SSH into the box and run the agent live. I can then send the same commands that I did before, which include telling the agent to give me suggestions on dependency upgrades. When we mount new code mount, it's actually mounted in the same directory. Now, this agent can run independently while I do other things. Launching a new Devbox at the Devboxes page, I'm going to go to the advanced settings. I'm going to choose the snapshot I created earlier. I need to add my secrets because we don't persist those on snapshots for security reasons. I don't need to mount my agent because my agent's already inside the snapshot. I'm going to add a code mount. I'm going to choose a Runloop library. That's a TypeScript library. And I'm going to launch the Devbox. We're going to see that this launch is going to be a lot quicker because we're using Runloop's cache snapshots. You don't have to pull agent dependencies or install anything. Now, we're going to use this agent inside the Runloop Devbox primitive and use that to scale out an app from a Next.js template. The following repo is going to be shared. This is a Next app that was built with the help of DeepAgents itself. This chat app has a front end where we can put ourselves into the shoes of a customer that's interacting with an agent. Someone has a question about an open source repository or even a private repository. They can ask that question to the agent. I'm going to finish off by updating my app with the new snapshot that we created together. This app is connected to Railway, which means I'm able to navigate to Railway via GitHub and edit the secret value for the new snapshot that I created. Within Railway, I'm able to then deploy my app immediately. So going here, choose my snapshot ID, and then quickly edit that. Saving and clicking deploy. With one variable change, we're going to wait for the app to rebuild again. Now that the app is finished building, I'm going to show you what it looks like end to end. Going to the app now, I can see that we have an interface to edit the GitHub URL as well as the GitHub token. I'm going to give it the black formatter, and then I'm going to keep the token empty because this is a public repository. When I start a session, I'm able to watch that this status is being updated based on Devboxes. And going to the Runloop page, well, before I go to the Runloop page, let's see. We have the chat that's opened up, and we can ask this tool about our repository. You can see that we have tool calls, and we have AI working its process. I'm going to go through some of the other pages to go through what we can see from different angles. We can see that we have the black library and the Devbox loaded up. You can see that we can even monitor errors from this app. And you can imagine that we can do some good tracing on which agents are being run from which boxes and how users are interacting with them. Going now to the Runloop dashboard, going to the Devboxes, we can see we had one error, but we also have one running Devbox. This Devbox's ID, ending in YRH, matches the ID of the Devbox in the user session. And we can see we are seeing extensive logs here. Going back to the chat, we can go to the very bottom and confirm that our AI has suggested upgrades for the dependencies in the black library. Finally, we can see that the end-to-end flow exists.
We hope you enjoyed this demo, and the foundation that we're building on is going to be the future as development becomes more and more agentic. Experiments with agents can ship faster than ever with agent harnesses like DeepAgents and an infrastructure platform like Runloop.
We can't wait to see what you build.